Today, we're going to learn about some things that should be taught in school. We're going to talk about mastering your energy using self control, self awareness, and emotional intelligence. These are three skill sets, I would say, that we should be learning as we are developing in the womb. Like, if we could learn these things, I swear crime would be reduced, relationships would be better, people would be happier, joyful, like more at peace. Learning these skills really changed my life. It changed how I deal with problems, changed the way I deal with relationships, and overall just made me a better thinker and just made me more wise. And I'm so excited to talk about these topics and just kind of help you guys understand how to get to where I am when it comes to having emotional intelligence and being just very self-aware. The moral of this whole concept is learning how to master your emotions and master yourself. So you want to get to a point in life where you don't allow external things to control you, to control how you operate, control how you see yourself, and how you treat people. And the only way you can really do that is really just being self-aware and just being basically educated on human nature and understanding why we do certain things. And let me just say this is not to excuse behavior. This is not to, give people a lot of leeway, but it's really just to help you stay in a calm state and also help you understand how to deal with problems from a more high level perspective. So let's just get right into it. So first, I'm going to tell you guys my personal definition of what all these things mean. So being self-aware, well, first let's start with emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, to have emotional intelligence, it means that you are aware of like how things make you feel, and you are just very aware of when people are using different tactics to control your feelings. So you know when you're being manipulated, you know when people are using you, and you are just aware of like the different triggers and how they affect you to the point where you can kind of already get yourself ready for it, or just kind of give you an idea of how to deal with a particular situation or something that you are assuming may happen. Emotional intelligence is very important in the workforce and also just dealing with relationships. So for example, at my job, there was a huge difference between myself and one of my coworkers when it comes to emotional intelligence. Me personally, like, I wouldn't let like my staff who I was leading to just get me really upset. I would really like figure out how to solve problems or just figure out how to deal with my emotions in a particular time, versus my coworker who would just let people see when she was stressed out. She would voice that she was stressed out, and it was just all over her face and all over her energy. And so in that particular sense, you would say that she's not emotionally intelligent. And it's not to say that you can't express your emotions, but it's just knowing how to deal with them and how to express them in a healthy way. So that's what emotional intelligence is. Self-control is having the discipline and the courage and the confidence to not go back to old ways, old habits, but also just being able to maintain a calm state and just being in control of how you feel and not letting external things knock you off your balance or equilibrium. And then there's self-awareness. So I would say people not being self-aware is probably the number one reason why relationships do not work. People do not look inward. People do not have any conviction. People do not have a good sense on if they are progressing or going backward in life. And that is a huge, huge problem. So being self-aware just means that you are conscious of what you're doing, what you're saying, and how it's affecting you and other people. You can kind of think ahead like, oh, if I say this may make so-and-so feel away. That's being self-aware. And it kind of ties into like having social awareness as well. But we're going to specifically talk about self-awareness. So when you have self-awareness, you're just able to think before speaking. You have self-control. you have emotional intelligence, and you are just aware of how you could be, affecting another person. So it's very important that you have self-control, you have self-awareness and emotional intelligence if you want relationships to thrive and if you want to master your own energy. So I'm going to kind of break down how to master your energy and how to develop in these specific areas. And it's really simple because once you become aware of it, you can't unsee it. So we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and self-awareness together because they kind of go hand in hand. So if you want to become more self-aware and master your emotional intelligence, it's all about learning. You need to become aware of different emotions and how these emotions make you feel. You need to learn about the different tactics that you may use or other people may use in order to affect emotions. So you need to learn about manipulation. You need to know when you are being manipulated or when you are manipulating someone else. You need to be aware of narcissism behavior or narcissistic behavior. Most humans, we all have a little bit of narcissism in us, and it's very damaging to relationships. It can be. So you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware of your own insecurities and understand what it looks like when someone else is insecure and how that makes you feel. You also need to be aware of respect. Know when you're being disrespected and know when you are disrespecting other people. But also on the flip side, you want to know when you're being respected and know how to be respectable to other people. You need to know when someone is trying to get a reaction out of you. And remember that hurt people always hurt people. And then you also need to be aware of when you are hurt. So I will say for me personally, I was able to learn a lot of these skills and learn a lot of these terms as a social work major. So when I was in college, I learned a lot about these things. I learned a lot about different disorders and different psychological tactics that people use to get their way. And so I started to pay attention to these things in my family, my friendships. And I've always been a very aware person, not even self-aware, but just aware of things. I would be very aware when I was younger and just understanding how things made people feel. And I just paid attention to everything. But when it came to friends, when I was in high school and in college, I was that person who was quick to cut people off because I would instantly see the red flags. I could tell when someone was using me or when someone wasn't a good friend or when someone just, had such a bad evil spirit or bad attitude. And I could just, tell that my spirit and their spirit just wouldn't collide. And so I kind of carried that with me, especially once I got in college and I learned about all these things. I started to pick up and understand that humans are so flawed and we don't even know it. And we also do things out of habit. We do things out of tradition. So for instance, you may carry a bad attitude because, you want to just do what your mom did or you react the same way your mom used to react. And sometimes you don't even know you're doing it, but that's just what you saw as a child and you carried that with you as an adult. So I was aware of a lot of these things and I also, like I said, learned about it. I also read books about it. And so it's very important that you educate yourself on these things because if not, life is just going to have to teach you. And of course, life is the best teacher. But to save yourself a lot of headache and heartache, it's very important that you learn about these things and you follow people on social media who are spiritual teachers or self-development leaders who really try to help you to understand human nature and understand universal laws because it will best help you in your relationship. So when it comes to being self-aware and being emotional intelligent, it's just very important to learn how different people and things make you feel and just take note of it. So for me, I journaled a lot. When I was in college, I really experienced having family members who were literally using me for money, or they would always make me show up to things and they would never show up for me. And I noticed that, it hurt me and it made me feel a way. So I took action, I voiced my opinion, and I did it in a way that wasn't toxic. It took me a while to say something because I was a people pleaser. I didn't have a lot of, I would say, emotional intelligence in that area. So I would be a people pleaser and kind of let people, I wouldn't say walk all over me, but I just didn't have a lot of strong boundaries up. And so I learned that I was being a people pleaser, and then I took action and I spoke about how I felt. And now I deal with those relationships accordingly with self-control. You know, whenever I get those urges to want to do something for somebody or I speak too soon, I will quickly like become aware of it and be like, okay, no, like this is not healthy. This is coming from old wounds. And so I would instantly fix it. And so that's what it means to just be emotional intelligent and self-aware. You think before you speak. You make choices out of clarity and out of chaos, and you keep your emotions in mind and the other person. And that's a big job to have, like, and it takes a lot to try to understand other people's feelings, but for me, it kind of comes naturally because I understand human nature and it makes sense as to why certain things would make people feel a certain way. So that's why I said it's important to learn to understand human behavior, to understand human nature, and understand like how things affect us differently. Like even like in college, like I learned a lot about how our environment shapes us, you know, nature versus nurture. Like I learned about all those things, and it helped me just see things from a much higher level and from a more clear perspective. And that's what helped me to become more self-aware, more emotional intelligent. Like I became aware of why I did and said certain things or why I felt a certain way about things. And so that's what it really takes to become self-aware, is educating yourself. Awareness means you are conscious, you are knowledgeable about something. And so the only way to really have that is to learn. So when it comes to being self-aware and emotional intelligent, the first step is just educating yourself and learning human nature and learning about people instead of just being so naive and being ignorant to the world and taking things at face value. All right, so when it comes to having self-control, and we're mostly talking about emotions here so that you can master your energy so that you can actually go to the next level in life. Having self-control is very important, and the top tip I can give you is to pause before reacting. It is so easy to just pop off at the mouth and say whatever you're feeling, say whatever you're thinking. And some people pride themselves on being that person, but it actually can bite you in the butt later on or even in that exact moment. So it's very important that you be present. And this is where I always preach about being present. Be present. Be the bigger person in every scenario that you can be the bigger person. Of course, don't let people walk all over you, but it is a lot more rewarding when you be the bigger person because you're saving yourself the headache and the heartache and saving yourself from that negative energy. So whenever something comes up that could cause or is causing some uncomfortable feelings inside of you, whether it's anger, sadness, grief, whatever that may be, pause before you give a reaction, and it will literally make a huge difference in the situation and in the relationship. And take deep breaths. Like the other day, me and my husband was having a heated discussion, and I felt myself wanting, like, I have this thing, like, I'm just gonna be very transparent with you guys. Like, when I'm upset, or at least when I used to be really upset, I've changed a lot, but like when I used to be upset, I'm someone who likes to like get it out. So like it used to be crying. Like when I was younger, I was the crier. But as I got older, I stopped crying and I was more of a, like I want to hit something. Definitely never hit my partner, but like maybe it's like a wall, not even a wall. I would say like bam on the table or like, on my legs or something like that. Like just like wanting to get those emotions out. Like that's just how I used to like to get things out. But my husband, he's such a calm spirit and he's such a neutral person that to him, I look like a crazy person. And at first I'm like, this is just how I like to express myself. This is who I am. And he's like, but that's not healthy. And so then I started like doing some inner work and I'm like, you know what? This is not healthy. Why does my first response have to be yelling or like, wanting to like ball my fist up and like hit something? It needs to be, You know, is it really that serious? Like, or what can you say? What can you verbally say in a healthy way to help you get across what you're feeling on the inside? So, with that being said, we were having this discussion and I was getting upset, and I was the watcher of the thinker. I watched myself in my head, like because I was in the passenger seat. I wanted to like hit the door. Like I wanted to hit the door and just like da 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 da. That's what I wanted to do. But I thought about it and I was like, nope, don't do it. That's not the answer. That's not gonna solve anything. And I just took a deep breath. I let some tears out. And I took a deep breath, a couple of deep breaths, and I was like, we pulled up at the location we were at. We were at a store, and I was like, okay, you go inside. I said, I'm gonna stay in the car, and I'm gonna just take some time to just like get myself together. And guess what? He got back in the car, and I was good. We had a conversation about it later, but it felt so much better to like give myself that time to just process and like slowly react in a more healthy way than to like do what my body initially wanted to do. So that's what it means to have self-control, is to be the watcher of the thinker. You watch yourself do something before you do it, and you assess whether it's going to be a healthy move or if it's an unhealthy move, if it's chaotic, if it's toxic, or if it's not, if this is coming from a high level place or if it's coming from a low level place. And a lot of people will say like, oh, that's doing too much, but like it really is that serious. And if you really want to master your emotions and master yourself, you will do what it takes. If you read the book The Power of Now, it will really help you understand that. And that's what really kind of like broke the code for me, was understanding how to be the watcher of the thinker. So like I'm here being I'm the thinker, but I'm actually up here as the watcher, watching myself react, watching myself have conversations. And I'm looking and I'm thinking and I'm watching myself and I'm saying, okay, is what I'm doing, you know, for the better or for the worse? You know, if I react this way, what are going to be the consequences, whether it's positive or negative? And that's what it means to be the watcher of the thinker. That's what it means to be present. And that's what it means to have self-control. So the next thing, when it comes to having emotional intelligence, you want to separate your feelings from your identity. A lot of times people will kind of operate in life based on whatever their emotions may be at that same moment. Like I have a family member who, like, whenever she's upset with her dude, like now that dictates like her whole day, her whole week. And she says things like, oh, like I'm just tired of everybody, like, or I don't feel like talking, I'm not in the mood. And it's like, so now you're letting your emotions shape like how you're operating. You're letting that dictate like your whole life at this point. And you say things like, oh, there's a lot going on in the world and I'm tired of this and X, Y, Z. And it's just like all because you and so ain't talking. That's kind of wild. And that's not being self-aware, and that's not having emotional intelligence. And this past Sunday, my pastor said something that was so powerful but so simple. He said, don't turn bad days into a bad life. A lot of times people will, you know, see their lives as being terrible or just not what they want because they may just be having a bad day or two. It's okay. Like, it's normal to have bad days. You know, if we listen to this song, Not the Time, Not the Place by Marvin Sapp, he says in that song, like, you know, we all have joy, we all have sadness, we all have grief, we all have happiness, we all have good days, we all have bad days. And that is having emotional intelligence. It's understanding that you are going to feel, and that doesn't mean that you have to change the whole course of your life based on those emotions and those feelings. Like I always say, us having emotions and feelings is what make us humans. It's what separates us from animals, and it's a great thing. But it's not a great thing when you allow those emotions to control you to the highest degree. You're making decisions out of chaos. You know, for example, like when people are in relationships and let's say the girl caught the guy cheating. Yes, that is terrible and that's not a good feeling to have. But then to retaliate, you go scratch his car up, key his car, or you find a way to get him fired from his job, or find a way to get him arrested by lying on him. That is not having emotional intelligence. And so you don't want to be that person. You don't want to make irrational decisions based on emotion. So separate feelings from identity. Emotions do tell you when something is bothering you or when you're being triggered, but it doesn't mean that it has to define you or define your life. And then last thing, choose long-term respect over short-term relief. It always feels good to react. Like when I was in a situation in the car the other day, like I could just feel that it would felt good to like hit the door and get those emotions out, but it's just not the most healthiest thing to do, and it doesn't solve anything. And it also causes my husband to lose more respect for me, because it's like, you really don't understand. Like me, like in our specific situation, like he could look at it like you really don't want to grow, because it's something that like me and him have been, talking about over the years, and it's something that I've been working on. And so he could look at it like, dang, like you really don't want to change, or you really don't want to get better. You really don't want to become that next version of you, because you are so focused on a short-term relief of what it'll feel like if you get to yell or hit your legs or hit the table. And so if you want long-term respect, and if you want lasting, healthy relationships, you will choose the best way possible to deal with situations. So even though reacting in that moment how you want to may feel good, it's better to have control and discipline over the situation, because it will pay off in the end. So like I said earlier, take your time when it comes to dealing with situations. Be present. Don't think so much about the past or think too much about the future. Focus on the situation at hand right then in that moment. If you're in a heated discussion with multiple people, strive to be that person who's being calm. That's something that I will always admire my husband for, because he may be feeling crazy on the inside, but you will never know it. And he's so great at just like maybe putting on a mask and just still being like that calm, neutral energy in chaos. Like, when his father passed away, it was a lot of chaotic things going on, and everyone else was just reacting over just a lot of crazy things that were happening. But he was that one person that everybody kept calling, because they knew that he would speak from such a calm and such a humble place. And so I think it's just very important, and I know it's just very important to choose the higher path and choose the more grounded, more calm path, versus choosing the chaotic one that's just wanting to feed the ego or be prideful and hold a grudge or be full of ego when it comes to like how you're reacting to that situation. Because it gets to a point where like you become narcissistic and you only care about your emotions and how you feel, instead of being aware, self-aware of how those reactions could be affecting the other person. So choose long-term respect over short-term relief. And that's just like with anything in life. When it comes to dopamine and not having delayed gratification, that stuff really affects you negatively, short-term and long-term. It's better to choose the route that may take more time, take harder conversations, take more discipline, and take more self-control. So the goal in life is to not allow external triggers to control how you operate, how you see yourself, and how you treat people. Master your energy. I'm going to read today's verse for the video. It's Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 through 23. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. God wants us to operate from a spirit of being kind, being peaceful, being patient, and having self-control. This is not just for women, this is for men as well. He wants us to be gentle with how we speak to people. He wants us to be kind. He wants us to be patient. He wants us to have self-control. So when you hear people talk about self-control, you think that it's just some self-development mumbo jumbo. No, that is what God calls for over our lives. And it's very important that we do our best to operate from the Holy Spirit and allow Him to move through us and operate through us, so that we can be a role model and just be of service and allow God to shine through us. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Master your energy. Choose the higher path, and your life will change for the better. It will take you to that next level. Thank you for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.